When I was young, my father took me and my brothers on camping trips to Pymatuming State Park in Northeast Ohio. Far from the city lights, the sky was so clear that we could see the Milky Way. We slept in tents and went on swimming and hiking, and for breakfast, we ate cereal that came from tiny little boxes that you ripped open and poured in milk. Does anybody remember that? Yeah, I thought you would. These trips sparked my love of the outdoors. And on one of these camping trips, Dad showed me how to start a fire. Dad showed me the art of building a tiny teepee with small dry sticks and twigs. And when the teepee and twigs were ready, he said, "Son, light the teepee using only one match, just one match." And after the teepee caught fire, he showed me how to add progressively larger sticks and twigs until the campfire blazed warmth and light to us all. Dad would say, one match fire was something to be proud of. And so for the rest of my life, I've strived to make one match fires. And I always felt a sense of accomplishment and connection to my dad whenever I use just one match. Well, why do I remember this moment so vividly? I'll let you know later on, but I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the spirituality of fire. Growing up, I didn't know my dad was an apprentice father. Aren't all fathers apprentices on the job? Sadly, my grandfather died when my dad was 5 years old, and Dad didn't have a dad growing up. That made teaching me how to build a fire an even more special moment for a father and son connection. And nearly every time I start a fire, I think fondly of my father. 1 million years ago, our ancestors used fire that was probably caused by lightning. This was naturally caused fire. Later, our ancestors learned to carry embers back to the cave to cook a meal. This was portable fire. And 400,000 years ago, Neanderthals discovered it was possible to make fire by striking flint. This was DIY fire, do-it-yourself fire. And it made food taste better, and our ancestors mastered this technology, and food was easier to chew and nutrients easier to absorb. Fire kept our ancestors warm at night. It kept predators at bay. Fire sharpened and hardened tools. Fire produced charcoal for drawing on cave walls. Imagine yourself 1 million years ago being in the presence of this powerful source, this new technology, and learning to control it. Can you imagine how it felt? Fire was magical, mystical, and a spiritual thing. Imagine all the ancient stories that were told around fire. Imagine feeling the warmth from dancing flames. Imagine making connections, holding celebrations, the singing, the prayers, the hearth, the harmony. Fire for ceremony, fire for companionship, fire for cooking and sharing meals, fire to light the dark night, and fire for welcoming the stranger. Imagine the distant past where spiritual practices began around the power and awe of fire. In our Unitarian Universalist services, we light a chalice, usually with just one match. Lighting that chalice in worship marks the beginning of a service where we create a sacred place to be with each other in meditation and reflection and prayer. Our UU chalice is a symbol that represents religious freedom, hope, and love. This chalice flame awakes the spirit. It represents gathering around shared values, and we build community around the chalice flame. Flame is not universally used in all religious services, but the use of fire is widespread and ancient. Smudging is a sacred Native American practice that involves burning sacred herbs like sage and cedar and sweetgrass and to spiritually cleanse and purify a space or a person. I've been invited to ceremonial smudging rituals, and in this sacred circle, I felt a spiritual connection. So here's a question. This is the question. What is spirituality? The answer is personal for everyone, and I can't define it for you, but here are some things that I think spirituality is not. You can't buy spirituality. It can't be delivered in an Amazon box. Come on. It can't be delivered by someone far away telling you to buy something on the TV. If spirituality is not those things, then what is it? You know, a spiritual practice can include meditation, being in a quiet place, deep breathing, walks in nature, creating art, spending time with loved ones, and doing community service. Spirituality is often deeply felt. My spiritual quest for meaning, purpose, and connection, the connection with others and with something greater than myself. Sometimes I call that spiritual thing greater than myself a higher power, or the great spirit of the universe. Sometimes I simply call it reality, because when I face reality, I accept the things that I cannot change. Doesn't that make reality a higher power? Here's a story about my humble beginnings in spiritual growth. When I was in my 20s, I hitchhiked from Anchorage to Fairbanks. Anybody here hitchhiked before? Come on, be honest. Yeah, a lot of you. Now, in case you haven't experienced hitchhiking, here's a pro tip. When hitchhiking long distances, long rides are generally preferred over short rides. A driver picked me up near Willow, Alaska, and he was going nonstop to Fairbanks. Lucky me. Lucky me, except that the driver wanted to talk about God. And I was skeptical. So if it wasn't for the fact that this driver was going nonstop all the way to Fairbanks, I considered getting out and waiting for a more secular driver. So I stuck with this devout driver as we debated rolling down the park's highway to Fairbanks. Somewhere south of Talkeetna, the driver asked me, "Are you the most powerful thing in the universe?" I paused. I hesitated. I said, "No." And he quickly replied, "There must be a higher power." Well, of course, I considered this a trick question. But this question did cause me to reconsider my place in the universe. Today, my spiritual practice involves every morning, brief meditation. Before my feet hit the floor, I give a moment of thanks for the day and to consider the fruits of the Spirit. Fruits of the Spirit include love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, tolerance. And love, I think, is the greatest of all the fruits of the Spirit. Love being an unconditional affection and concern for others. Now, I'm pretty sure love is a UU value. Hence the program that we have, Side with Love. My morning meditation is a ritual. It sets my head straight. It is a spiritual practice, and I emphasize practice. Like a fire that needs tending, so does the maintenance of my spiritual condition. I practice every day. It occurs to me that keeping a campfire burning is like maintaining a spiritual condition. A spiritual condition is a spiritual state, spiritual health, or spiritual well-being. Seeking inner peace takes practice, and it may require the help of others and helping others. There are times in my life when I feel disconnected. During a particularly dark time in my life, a friend showed me compassion and unconditional love that rekindled my spirit. I hope that you have someone like that in your life. So here's a question. I'm really going to ask for an answer here. Can a fire burn bright with wet green firewood? No. Okay. I think not. Can my spirit burn strong when harboring anger and judgment and resentment? Good job. Just as dry stacked firewood is a reserve for the next cold snap, doesn't the daily practice of meditation build our spiritual reserve for difficult times? My spiritual reserve comes from daily meditation, but also from deep and meaningful relations with others to feed my spirit. Spiritual growth builds resiliency. Spiritual growth is not a solo practice, and we can light a flame in others with kind words. We can lift somebody else up with encouragement. So with this in mind, I think that you probably found by now the pencil and paper that's on your chair or in your row. It's a cool little pencil. It looks like firewood. I urge you to, right now, write something to lift. What would you write down to lift someone else's spirit? Or write down something to lift your own spirit. Your note is private. I'm not going to ask you to share it. Just write down a phrase or a sentence. Not a manuscript, not a cord of wood, just one or two chunks of beautiful, uplifting spiritual firewood. Just a few words. What would you say to someone else to spark their spirit? And when you're done, pocket your message. Decide later if you want to share it with someone who could be lifted by your message. Because we can spark a flame in others with kind words. And of course, unkind words can extinguish a flame. I believe that building up someone else is a spiritual act and something that we practice every day. Metaphorically speaking, someday we are all going to experience a personal cold snap, like a personal 60 below moment. And when an unexpected personal cold snap happens, that's when we need our spiritual reserve. After a wildfire, forest seeds germinate, new growth emerges, and stronger and more resilient. And when our fire feels like it's a fading ember, kind words to others can reignite our spiritual selves. What spark lights your way? Okay, back to my story about dear old Dad. As an adult, I have a deeper understanding of that moment when Dad showed me how to start a campfire with a teepee of twigs using just one match. When my dad showed me how to build a fire, he was passing on knowledge. And I see now that for my dad, building a fire was a moment of connection with his son. Building that teepee long ago actually kindled 3 fires. Through this experience, 2 spirits bonded, and the fire provided warmth and comfort. What is the spirituality of fire? Isn't the spirituality of fire simply sharing love? May you collect dry firewood every day and build your spiritual reserve. May you share your light with others. And may your spirit burn bright. And now I'll end with a haiku. Flame of many truths, spirit of love, our community's warm, bright, guiding light. Our community's warm, bright, guiding light, spirituality.